Hi, Chase Craig here with Chase Craig Real Estate Group and Keller Williams Realty Boise, and I want to welcome you to step number 6 in our How to Buy a Home series, which is titled Writing and Negotiating an Offer. And again, kind of like looking for homes, we're going to break this into 2 videos. The reason for that is it's pretty in-depth as far as writing and negotiating offers. There's a couple things we want to go over and keep these videos short for you so they're easy to watch. So let's jump right into it. So when you're writing an offer, a couple key things to keep in mind. One of which is earnest money. So what is earnest money? Earnest money is your skin in the game, if you will. Typically, it's about 1% of the purchase price of the home. So an example would be if you're trying an offer on a $100,000 home, you would typically put $1,000 up for earnest money. $300,000 home, you're going to put $3,000 up. You get it. What does that money do, and when does it become non-refundable? So you're in Idaho. For our purchase and sale agreements, earnest money becomes non-refundable upon removal of any financing contingency. So that would be you are qualified to buy a home and the appraisal comes in at the value, assuming you're financing. And then of course the other thing it would be a contingency that would need to be removed is if you have an inspection done on the property and all those results come back satisfactory, then your earnest money becomes non-refundable, but is applied towards the purchase price of the property and or your down payment. So it's your skin in the game. The seller wants to make sure that you're real. They're not going to take their home off the market for you unless you have earnest money in play. And usually you don't see that less than $500. If you're going to be building a home, you can typically expect that earnest money to be significantly more, 3, maybe 5% of the price of the home. So keep that in mind. Here's some other things to keep in mind when you're writing an offer. There's key time frames that I want to make sure you're aware of. One of which is, when do you want the seller to respond by? I got an offer about 2 weeks ago on one of my listings, and I was given a 1-hour response time. Do yourself a favor and the other real estate agent and the seller a favor. Give them an adequate response time. Typically this is at least 24 hours, sometimes up to 48 hours. If you're dealing with a bank, or maybe a builder, like larger builder that's not open on weekends, adjust that time frame to allow them plenty of time to respond. The last thing you want to do is give them not enough time to respond, and then you're back in a situation where they have to write a counteroffer just to meet time frames. So give them plenty of time to respond, 24 to 48 hours on a normal transaction. Another time frame you want to keep in mind is the inspection period. So assuming you're buying a home and you're going to be doing some sort of inspection, I strongly encourage you to get a home inspection done on the property. That's where the inspector is going to get in the attic, get in the crawl space, test all the plugs, all the appliances, and give you an idea of what the lifespans might be. And we'll go over the inspection a lot more in depth later. But how much time do you have to do that? I typically write in for my clients 10 business days. That way we can coordinate to get the home inspector out. If there's other items we need to get bids on to see how much they are before we ask the seller to make any repairs, it gives us enough time to get bids. So 10 business days is what my recommendation is for that. And then last time frame that you need to be aware of is the closing date or the close of escrow date. What that's going to do is be how much time from when you write the offer until you're going to buy the home. And typically that's 30 days, sometimes 45 days. A long close of escrow might be 60 days. Of course, if you're building a home, it could be 4 or 5 or 6 months for that process. So make sure your real estate agent is going to be able to help you choose the appropriate time frame for that. 30-day close of escrow. We'll talk more about closing on homes and what that experience is like, so you have a better idea of what to look for. But definitely keep that time frame in mind. It can make a difference. And if you're negotiating an offer and you're really kind of getting down to the nitty gritty, and let's say there's another offer in play, it might behoove you to ask for a quicker close because the seller might like your offer more. It might behoove you to ask for a longer close because the seller might not want to move for a while. These are things that, as a real estate professional, I'm going to try and negotiate up front and find out what the best offer is to write. And then lastly would be closing costs. When you're writing an offer, this is one of the other key points you're going to need to write. Obviously, you have your price that you're going to write in. You're going to try and come up with that with your real estate professional. But closing costs these are some items to keep in mind. Here in Idaho, typically the seller pays for the standard owner's title policy. The seller also pays for half the closing escrow fee. Everything else is pretty much negotiated. That would be if you had an appraisal done, if you're getting a loan on the home and your bank needs to get the appraisal, who's going to pay for that? Typically the buyer pays for it. If I'm representing the buyer, I'm going to try and get the seller to pay for it. So this is part of the negotiation game that you're going to be playing, and there's many other items in the closing cost section that you can negotiate. You might even be getting a loan on the home, and you're going to have closing fees associated with your loan, but you want the seller to pay for them so you don't come out of your own pocket. Well, there's a section where we can ask the seller to pay for that as well. So lots of things to keep in mind when it comes to writing an offer on a home and negotiating it. We'll go over a couple more here on step 2 of this series. Thanks so much for joining us today, and I hope you learned something.